Hey, this is Carrie Canary Quilts, and it's the third Monday of the month, which means I'm going to be showing you how to do the blocks for this month and the piece and quilt along that Fat Quarter Shop is doing. They advertised this last year. I got into it. I bought the book. I bought the paper piece box that they sold to go with it. I like to paper piece. There's a lot of blocks that I'm glad that I paper pieced them. But some people are unfamiliar with the It's So Emma paper pieces that you get. You get pads, you get rolls. There's quite a few in here. And the other thing is you can make this quilt without the paper pieces, but if you're using the paper pieces, it doesn't tell you which ones to use. So what I'm going to do each month is go through each block and show you which one of these It's So Emma pads or papers we need to use in each block, show you how they work and how to use those papers and rolls. So this month we have Hovering Hawks and we have the Album Star. And so I'm going to show you which paper pieces to use in here and which paper piece to use in here. I don't go over too much of the construction of the block because that's all in here, but like I said, it doesn't tell you which paper pieces to use. So that's what I'm going to be doing each month. I really enjoy doing paper piecing. I like showing it. I like these papers, the It's So Emma papers. So that's why I'm doing this. This block or this quilt is going to be beautiful. And you can hit the subscribe button, notification bell, and you'll see what it looks like next year. So let me know if you're doing this quilt along. And you can check out my Instagram, Facebook page. I'll be posting it there. There is a hashtag for it. I'll put it right here if you want to see how other people's blocks look. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's get started on May's blocks for the piece and quilt sampler that Fat Quarter Shop is doing. Before we get started on piece and quilt, I want to let you know that since we have so many of these in the paper piece kit that we got for piece and quilt, I'm going to be making another quilt out of the book. This book by Lissa Alexander and Susan Aki. It's called Celebrate with Quilts. This is the Peppermint Rose quilt. It's done in Christmas fabrics, but I'm not going to do that. I'm using my pre-cuts quilt box. If you watch my box opening, I open that once a month. So I combined a few of those fabric bundles to put my blocks together. What I did was I went through all these blocks. I went to all the pages to see what kind of paper pieces we were going to need. And for every single one of these blocks, we only needed these two. The 1.5 inch finished half square triangles and the 1 inch finished triangles. Now for some of these, like this one in particular, this needed a 1 inch unfinished triangle. So I used this 1 inch finished, and then once it was all put together, I then trimmed all my half square triangles down to be this small. It is really hard to see these. These are just 3 inch blocks, so they're really small. So other than that, it went together really easily. I just pulled out my pieces, whatever I need. It tells you on here how big to cut your pieces, how wide to cut them, and then the length is based on how many of these you need. I don't do that. I just cut what I need and then lay it on my fabric and cut it out from there. So you'll probably see that when I'm going through the piece and quilt, but I just wanted to tell you how I did all of these 9 inch blocks. It took me about an afternoon to do these. And I used these two paper pieces to get all of these blocks finished. And they turned out really super cute. Now my background fabric that I chose has quite a big print in it, and it'll look better in the bigger blocks that are in here. But this is what it looks like for now on the little blocks. So I've got these done. I've got my just square patches that I need cut. And that is going to be this border right here with the small pieces. So I just wanted to go through and let you know if you want to do another one of these, you're not real familiar with these, because the pattern does not tell you when to use these. You just have to look at what size pieces you need, half square triangle, square and a square. This was a square and a square. Each one of these corners is a square and a square, but I didn't do that. I didn't have this small, and I went and made my own in EQ8. But you can certainly do it without having any paper pieces. So that's what I did. I'm going to do that for the next blocks, which are the 6-inch blocks here. I'll go through all of these, see what paper pieces I need, pull them out so I'm ready to go. But anyway, just wanted to show off what I'm doing from another quilt in this book with these paper pieces. So let's get started on Piece and Quilt and see what we've got going on today. All right, to get started on Piece and Quilt, for May 2024, we are going to be doing one 9-inch hovering hawk, and that pattern can be found on page 42, and this is what it's going to look like, and it will have a border around it. And then we are going to be doing the 12-inch album star, and we're going to do one of these, and that's on page 6. So this is a one-color block, but I got 2 colors out. All right, I'll have to pick a color. Anyway, this is a one-color block, and I found out that all we're going to need is the 2 3/4 inch finished, which is in your packet, that if you bought the paper piece packet for this quilt, and mine's going to be in brown with this background. And then the 12-inch album star block will use the 4-inch square and a square papers. And that's got 2 colors. I'm using red, so I'm going to have these 2 reds with this background here, little mushrooms. All right, so that's what we're working on today. Let's start with the hovering hawks and the half square triangles, and I'll show you how I get my pieces prepped to do this. Hovering hawks right here is what we're going to be doing. It has 8 half square triangles in it right here, these pieces in the middle and in the corners, and then it's got some patches that we're going to cut out of the background and out of my color. So for 8 half square triangles, and if you can do this block without paper piecing, but if you're going to be paper piecing, 2 3/4 inch finished half square triangles, and these are from It's So Emma, and it's called Triangles on a Roll. So each one of these rows right here does 4, and we need 8. So I'm going to need this square right here. So let me get that square cut out, and I cut right on the line. You can use rotary cutter or scissors, whatever you want to use to cut it out, but I'm just going to cut right on the line between these 2. If you only needed 4, then you would only need this strip right here. So I'm just going to cut this one too, so I know how big a piece I need. All right, that's what we're going to need to make the half square triangles in this block. So what I want to do with my color, here's my background, and here's the brown that I'm going to be using. So you can cut one at a time. What I'm going to do is just lay this out. And I'm going to cut a bigger square than I have here. There we go. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my background. I'm just going to use the fabric that I just did. And there we go. So we want to put these 2 fabrics right sides together. I'm going to lay this on so that I have fabric all the way around the outside edges. I'm going to pin it. And I'm just going to pin it right here in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my machine at a low stitch length. My machine is at normal stitch length is 2.2, so I'm taking it down to 1.6. So you can do whatever yours is to take it down to a shorter stitch length. And then I'm just going to go over to my machine and I'm going to sew on these dashed lines in the direction of the arrows. And then come in here and do the same thing. And then we'll get it cut out and we'll have 8 half square triangles. And then I'm going to get my patches cut that go in the block also. So pretty easy. Really easy way to get half square triangles done, and they'll be nice and square. Here is the 2 strips I did. These 2 strips for my half square triangles. You can see I've sewn on the dashed line and I followed the arrows, and you can see what it looks like on the back. So what we need to do now is cut on these solid lines. So let me get these cut out. It actually would be easier if you cut on the outside lines first. I should have done that. Get the extra fabric off the outside. And then cut on the inside lines. You really can do it any way you want. Here are all my half square triangles cut out on the solid lines. So we can now go over to our iron, and we're going to iron towards the dark side. So, and then I've got my patches cut in the light and the dark. And then we can put our block together. There's my perfect half square triangles. And I leave the papers on. Personally, I leave them pretty much on till the end of the project after the quilt is put together. I like the structure it gives the blocks. If these blocks are going to be sitting in storage for a while, it helps keep them straight and the same size. So that's what I do. You do not have to do that. You can pull them off right now if you want. All right, so let us put this hovering hawks together. We just need to lay out all our blocks in the right spots now. So when you're using the cutting directions with the paper piecing, A and C are going to be for these, but you will not use what they tell you to use. You'll do it like I did it, or use the measurements that the instructions for the paper piecing give you. And then you will cut out the background and print D's that it tells you to on the pattern. So let's get this laid out correctly. All right, there are my pieces laid out. Now all I have to do is put these together and our block will be done. The instructions tell you which way to iron everything, so I'm not going to go through that because I'm sure you have the book. I just wanted to go through mostly the paper piecing and how I do that. So I'm going to get this block assembled before we go on to the next one. There we go. I fixed that one. I had it the wrong way. I should have been looking in my camera because then you can see this strip right here. There's my 9.5 inch, is that what they call it? No, 9 inch hovering hawks for piece and quilt. And then if you go back to the quilt instructions, this is the block instructions. The quilt instructions have you border it out with these. So that's where I've got these pieces from. So I'm going to get that done, and then we'll move on to our album star. Yep, 12-inch album star block. We're doing one. I'm actually doing mine in red also. I'm using my So Colorful fat quarter bundles to put my piece and quilt together, and I'm pulled from my red one. Anyway, for this one, we're going to have to make 4 hourglass, which are here in this part of the block, and 1 square and a square. So when you're cutting your pieces, you will not cut, from the cutting instructions, you will not cut the F and B. You will use the instructions that are inside of your pad here. So you will need to cut 1 3 3/4 inch square from the background or the middle, whatever color your middle piece is going to be, or your middle square. And then we'll need to cut 2 3 3/4 inch squares cut on the diagonal. And that's what's going to be in our corners. So we just need to pull out one of these pad pieces, and I have 2 that we'll need. So I'm going to get all set up with my pieces cut out, and then we'll go through how we put this together, which is going to be very simple. Here's the pieces I have for my block. These are, these three here are the hourglass, which are from the A, C, and D cutting instructions, and this is E, this is the corner. But for F and B here in the middle, we use the cutting instructions that are in, let's see, or this way, inside our square and a square paper piece. And that's what I have over here. So the first cutting instruction was to cut the middle piece. And then the second cutting instruction was to cut 2 of these squares. But then we want to cut both of these on the diagonal. And I wanted to show you that. We need to do that before we get started, which will give us 4 of the corner triangles. So now we're all set up to do our square and a square paper piece. All right, let's get started with that. And then I'm going to put together my hourglasses after that. All right, so we want to sew on the side with the numbers and the lines. I want to go to this side, and you can draw it out if you want, but you can see through this paper pretty well. You want to make sure you're at least 1/4 of an inch over each line. And the piece is bigger than you need, so you will be a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to grab a pin. I'm going to pin right in the middle. I just want to let you know that the instructions are also in here on how to do this. But sometimes we just need a visual. So you may be able to see my piece underneath here. What we need to do is, that's our first piece. I've got it pinned on. We need to go to our second piece and we will trim. So we're going to go on the line, fold it over, grab my 1/4 of an inch ruler, and trim it. And then we're going to take one of our corners and we'll center it here. I like to try to line my corner up on the diagonal with this corner. So once we have it centered, we're going to come over here and we're going to sew just on this line from this point to this point. And you want to do a back stitch or a lock stitch right there. Remember to have your stitch also on a very low stitch length so that the paper gets perforated and will rip off easier when you're ready to pull it off. There's my first piece. It's ironed over. It's well past the outside of the paper because our cutting line is going to be this solid line you see right here in the end. So we're going to go to the other side. Do the same thing on 3. Fold it back. Trim it 1/4 of an inch. And center one of our triangles. I also took the pin out at this point. So on the line here, between 1 and 3, back stitch, lock stitch at your ends. Okay, first 2 pieces are on. Fourth piece, first 3 pieces, our 4th piece, we're going to come over here, fold on the line, trim 1/4 of an inch all the way across all the color fabrics. That's what it looks like. Grab another corner. And again, just center it, line your points up. And this time we are going to sew on this line, and you can go outside of that cutting line out here. Now here's the 3rd corner. Turn it over, go to the last corner, number 5. Trim it up. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. Line up our corner. And sew on this line right here. And you can go outside of your seam allowances also here. You can see I did that over here. So that's what it looks like before we trim it. Now we can come back and we can trim right along this solid line all the way around it. And it says right here, trim on this line. There you go. Look at that beautiful square and a square. Perfect. perfection. That's why I love these. So if you're doing it with the paper piece packet that you got from Fat Quarter Shop, that's how the square and the square works, and we used the 4-inch this time. I am going to put together all my hourglass pieces per the instructions in the book, and then we'll put our block together. Here's all my pieces now to put the block together. This is what we're going for, right there. So let's get everything out of the way. This is our center, square and a square. My solid patches go in the corner. Like that. And then my hourglasses go with the matching fabrics with the center. Like that. Oh, that is pretty. All right, I'm going to put this together according to the pattern and show you what it looks like when it's done. But you got a pretty good preview right here. There we go. There's my 12-inch album star block, one of the May blocks we did for the Piece and Quilt. And if you bought the book, Piece and Quilt is on the front of it. So there's the album star right there. Hovering Hawks is over here. That's harder to see. It's all folded up, but there's my Hovering Hawks and my album star. We used the 4-inch square and a square foundation paper piece by It's So Emma for the star and the star here in the center, and the 2 3/4-inch finished half square triangles for Hovering Hawks. Those turned out really pretty. I'm going to look forward to this every month. It's going to be fun. But anyway, if you're new to paper piecing and you're following me, the book does not tell you which paper pieces to use, so hopefully I can show you which ones to use and how to use them in each of these blocks each month. So there you go. That was fun. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell if you want to follow along on this journey or any of the other fun stuff we got going on. And let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.